गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देव महेश्वरा गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। तंतो मंदिर है, हृदय है वृंदावन। तंतो मंदिर है, हृदय है वृंदावन। वृंदावन में है बसे, वृंदावन में है बसे श्री राधिका किशन। तंतो मंदिर है, हृदय है वृंदावन। तंतो मंदिर है, हृदय है वृंदावन। प्रेम है तो तीर्थ है, प्रेम धर्म है। प्रेम है तो तीर्थ है, प्रेम धर्म है। प्रेम है अर्चना, प्रेम कर्म है। प्रेम है तो अर्चना, प्रेम कर्म है। प्रेम ही प्रभु का नाम, प्रेम ही प्रभु का नाम। प्रेम ही धर्म। तंतो मंदिर है, हृदय है वृंदावन। तंतो मंदिर है, हृदय है वृंदावन। कामना को त्याग कर भक्ति राह चल। कामना को त्याग कर भक्ति राह चल। वासना में क्यों जले आरती सजल। वासना में क्यों जले आरती सजल। आत्मा मरे नहीं, आत्मा मरे नहीं। तन का हो निधन। तंतो मंदिर है, हृदय है हृदय है वृंदावन। वृंदावन में है बसे श्री राधिका किशन। संतो मंदिर है हृदय है वृंदावन। जग तो अंधकार है, इससे तो निकल। जग तो अंधकार है, इससे तो निकल। जग तो अंधकार है, इससे तो निकल। ज्ञान का प्रकाश कर, मोड़ तो संभल। ज्ञान का प्रकाश कर, मोड़ तो संभल। राधा कृष्ण के चरण में, राधा कृष्ण के चरण में नित कर नमन। संतो मंदिर है हृदय है वृंदावन। संतो मंदिर है हृदय है वृंदावन। वृंदावन में है बसे, वृंदावन में है बसे श्री राधिका किशन। संतो मंदिर है हृदय है वृंदावन। संतो मंदिर है हृदय है वृंदावन। हृदय है वृंदावन, हृदय है वृंदावन। हृदय है वृंदावन, हृदय है वृंदावन। हृदय है वृंदावन, हृदय है वृंदावन। वंशी विभूषित करान, नवनीरदाभात। पीताम्बरादरुणबिम्बफलाधरोष्टात्। पूर्णेन्दु सुन्दरमुखात्, अरविन्दनेत्रात्। कृष्णात् परं किमपि त्वमहं न जाने। कृष्णात् परं किमपि त्वमहं न जाने। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे, तापत्रय विनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव। हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव। हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव, हे
Welcome to Satsang. And it's such a special and auspicious time these days of Diwali, days of this celebration of light, this festival of light, of togetherness, of love, of the return of our awareness of the divine. Diwali is that celebration of Bhagwan Ram coming back to Ayodhya after his 14 years of exile, after conquering the demon Ravan. After all of that, he comes back and people line the streets with light. This is the celebration of Diwali. The days around this are days filled with puja and ritual and ceremony and worship and love and family and light and sweets. So it's such a special and beautiful time to be connected in Satsang.
I'm in a financially distressing situation and having to receive assistance from the state. I have a college education and other people in the clinic waiting room obviously don't. I dress well so no one thinks I'm one of them. I feel badly because I know I'm not superior to them, but my ego is too big to let go. How do I stop feeling like this?
The ego. the attachment that we have to the roles that we play, the way that we would like the world to see us, the way that we would like the world to respond to us, to act toward us, and the way the world actually does. This is the source of so much misery in the world. If you stop 10, 20 random people on the street, people with food to eat, with a roof over their heads, with education, people without any actual logistic cause for suffering or fear, anxiety. You stop them and you say, how are you today? Ma'am, sir, bhai sahab, uncle ji, didi, whatever you call them. How are you today? In most cases, people are stressed. And if you ask them the source of their stress, it almost always boils down to someone, some group of someones not responding the way they'd like them to, not treating them the way that they would like them to, not acting, not speaking the way that they would like them to. It's the ego that causes so much suffering. And this is where, on a spiritual path, we emphasize so much over and over to become free of the ego. It kills us. It's the ego that says, how dare you speak to me like that? It's the ego that says, who do you think you are? It's the ego that says, don't you know who I am? It's the ego that says, I should be treated like this, spoken to like that. It's the ego that is so attached to all of the individual actions, words, behaviors, responses that we get from the world. And of course, the dilemma is we have no control over the world. So we've attached our happiness, our peace, our well-being in something that A, is constantly changing. The way people speak to us, treat us, is dependent not on us, it's dependent on them. We take it personally, but it actually all has to do with them. It has to do with what mood they're in at the moment. It has to do with what light or darkness they're in, with what happened to them 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour ago, 30 years ago that's triggering them in this moment. It's never about us, it's always about them. But we get caught up. So how people treat us, how they act, how they respond, it constantly changes, number one. And number two, we have no control over it at all. But we've hooked our happiness in it. And this is where we suffer. So the best way to deal with the ego is to acknowledge it, recognize it exists. I always say, do not say in your mind, I'm going to get rid of my ego. I'm going to annihilate my ego. I'm going to fight my ego. And the reason you don't want to say that to yourself is when you say that in your mind, your ego hears it. Your ego is sitting there in your mind listening to you say, I'm going to annihilate the ego. There's no place you can whisper that the ego won't hear you. So what happens when you do that? Then the ego thinks, all right, annihilate me, right? And the ego is very cunning, very clever, and of course very attached to its own survival, like anything. Even a little ant, a little mosquito is very attached to its own survival. So when the ego hears you saying that, it starts to play even more games. It starts to come to you as a certain voice in a certain way, a certain inner instinct that you think just might be the voice of God, just might be your inner voice. And it's just the ego playing dress up, so it's not annihilated. So don't say that. Instead, see the ego, recognize it. I see you, I bow to you, I understand where you are coming from. And I'm not going to give you the reins of this show. You don't get to control how I feel, how I think, how I speak. You can exist. I'm not going to annihilate you. But you can't control things. The dilemma comes. I'll insult you, I'll show you, I'll one-up you. You hit me, I'll hit you. You're mean to me, I'll be mean to you. That's where the ego gets us in trouble. Or the ego feels threatened, feels hurt. So it engages in its drama with the world around it. And then what you find when you look back on the hours and the days of your life is how much of them were wasted. Wasted in ego battles of wills with people in so many cases that you don't even care about. I mean, here in this question, we're talking about people waiting in a waiting room. Nameless people. People whose faces you probably couldn't even pick out of a lineup 3 hours later. But what they think of you, how they identify you, causes you suffering. And this is true as we drive down the freeway, as we shop for groceries, as we move through our career world and our offices and companies with colleagues, with community people. People about whom we don't even care. What they think of us, how they treat us, how they speak to us, has such a power to cause such suffering. And then, of course, you bring it into our loved ones, and it's even 100 times worse because they are people we care about. And this is where what's most important is we see the ego, we understand it exists, but we just pull away its power. Pull away its ability to hold the reins of this chariot. And we expand. We expand our sense of self. So when you're in the grip of an ego battle, your inner self feels like it's about this big, tiny. And it feels very squished, and it feels suffocated, and it feels like it's in this vice death grip of the ego around that particular drama situation. But if you can expand the awareness of self, breathe, let go, recognize the connection to all, then yeah, the ego exists, it exists over there. But in the ocean, so many things exist. Right? The ocean itself. Beautiful, beautiful fish swimming in the ocean. In one part of the ocean, aren't worried that in the other part of the ocean there's sharks. Swimming in one part of the ocean, not worried that there's high tide in another part of the ocean. As long as it's low tide where I am, we're good. Yeah, high tide, it's over there. Yeah, the tsunami, it's happening over there. So if we can expand that awareness, expand that consciousness so that the ego is still entitled to exist. It's the metaphoric shark over there or high tide over there. But it's not impacting us over here. Because my decisions, my thoughts, my feelings, my attention, my focus is over here. And if over there the ego is playing its own drama games, okay, so be it. Right? It's like a puppy playing in the corner. As long as it's not jumping on you, it's okay. So that's how you deal with the ego. And then slowly, 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 you'll find it dissipates. At least its impact on you will dissipate. And its presence can be there, as long as it's not in control of things.
Is meditation about undoing what we have done to ourselves? How can we unlearn the things that have become our identity?
Meditation is an undoing. It's an unlearning of the way that we identify. But see, our identity keeps changing. It's not that at 2 years old you create a fixed identity and it is with you forever. Our identity keeps changing. As we move through our lives, we identify one way when we're young. As we start to get older, we start to identify in different ways. We identify in certain ways with regard to our relationships. As a parent over a young child, there's one aspect of identity. Parent over a child who's moving out of the house or who has just left the house. Empty nest syndrome, another identity. First get married. One identity. Married 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. The identity even just within the relationship shifts. Our identity in our career shifts. Not even as the career itself shifts, but just within the career. So the identity is never something that's fixed. It's always changing. Even something like we wake up one day and feel really good in our bodies and ourselves, feel healthy, feel strong. Wake up other days like the morning after Diwali when you've eaten way too many laddus and you wake up feeling kind of sick, kind of fat, kind of ugh. It's a totally different identity in the body, in the self that day, compared to a day that you wake up feeling light and fresh and healthy. So all of these identities that we have are various shades, various aspects, various manifestations of this sense of who we think we are. The core of it, though, is always, it's rooted to the body. It's rooted to the size, the shape, the feeling, the color, the attractiveness of it to others, whether as an aesthetic attraction, whether an attraction in a career or professional way. This body can make so much money doing certain things in this office, this company. So there's a value to it, a value given to what it can do. Then, of course, there's the history of the body, where it's been, what's happened to it, what it's done, what it's learned. There's the culture, where it's from, what it thinks. So all of the identities are rooted in the body. And what meditation does is it makes us realize we are not the body, which means that automatically all of those identities start to dissipate. So it's not about just, my identity as this particular career, or my identity as this person's mother or this person's husband or that person's brother or this one's sister. But it's the whole identity of this body-mind complex. All that it's been through, all that it does. Meditation helps us unlearn that I'm not that. It helps us unlearn patterns of how we think, how we feel. And of course, our thoughts create our realities. So as we change and unlearn how we think, so many of us are just slaves to our thoughts. They come in totally uninvited, unexpected. They just show up. They take over our mind for a period of time and then they leave. But they leave behind this ripple impact within the mind. One thought has given birth to so many little baby thoughts in the mind that as they hatch over the next few seconds, minutes, hours, create a whole cascade of thoughts, of feelings, of behaviors. And so when meditation helps us realize we're not our thoughts and to find the space between the thoughts, it gives us a whole new way of being. And once you've seen that truth, you know it's true. And then that stays with you. Doesn't mean that you don't ever get caught up again in some patterns. But you know they're just patterns. And you're able to re-anchor in the truth of who you really are.
When I try to meditate, all evils come into my mind. How do I control it?
When we meditate, all the thoughts come. Everything comes in our meditations. And it's not about control. It's not about pushing things down. It's not about fighting them off. It's about staying anchored and grounded in the space between the thoughts. This is what meditation does. So when a thought arises, the answer to that thought is not to fight it off. My favorite example of this is several years ago in our International Yoga Festival here. I was teaching meditation, and it was an afternoon class, and we were sitting in one of these beautiful tents that they put up for the yoga festival in the back garden. And I was speaking as we were meditating about the monkey mind and the way the mind just jumps around. And at that moment, you started to hear a little in the fabric of the tent. And everyone started kind of gently, slowly, like this, opening their eyes a little bit to see. And you looked up, and you could see the arms of some monkeys, actual monkeys, that were playing on the roof of the tent. Their arms would go down in between the fabric and kind of hang into the tent that we were meditating in. And I encouraged people to reclose their eyes, and that as wonderfully descriptive as this particular example the universe had given us was, nonetheless, we were going to turn our attention back to the monkey mind rather than the actual monkeys on the tent above us. And we started to meditate again, and we started to go deeper into our meditation. And of course, the monkeys still played on the on the fabric roof, but it wasn't very distracting at all. We were deep in our meditation when suddenly there was this bam, 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 bam. And it was the guard with a pole, a stick, that he was whacking on the metal poles that held the tent up in order to scare the monkeys off. Now, it was impossible to continue a meditation with a metal rod banging against a metal pole as you were trying to meditate. Bam, bam, it was so loud. And it was so perfect because even though our meditation was temporarily, inevitably interrupted, it gave me the opportunity to give an even better teaching. And the teaching is, when the monkeys come in the mind, and whether they are the monkeys of desire, the monkeys of greed, the monkeys of lust, the monkeys of fear, the monkeys of evil, as you say, whatever monkeys they are, it doesn't matter. When they're just playing around, instead of allowing your attention to be diverted by them, just keep drawing the awareness. Draw the awareness back to your breath, back to your mantra, back to your meditation. Find that space between the thoughts. But whatever you do, do not try to fight them off. Do not become the inner guard that is trying to get them to go away and being that inner metaphoric, bam, bam, go away, guard. Because that will ruin your meditation. So whenever thoughts come of any kind, just draw the awareness back to the breath. Just draw it back. Don't allow yourself to be hooked into that thought. Just come back to the breath. But the mistake that we make is we try to fight it and we try to push it away. We try to yell at it. We yell at ourselves, go away. Come on, I'm trying to meditate. Get out of here. Stop bothering me. And that's the equivalent of that inner chowkidar banging the metal rod against the metal pole. That'll ruin your meditation. But the thoughts, don't worry. You're human. It's part of the package deal of being human. But part of the package deal also is this extraordinary and exquisite opportunity in that space between the thoughts to experience the truth of who you are. So find that space. Draw the awareness back to that space. It's the blue sky between the clouds that are blowing across it. Instead of being attached to the cloud that's going across, be focused on the blue sky in between them. Have a beautiful, meditative evening, morning, day, wherever you are. We'll see you here tomorrow for a special meditation on Dhanteras, on Diwali. The same time, 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. And have such a beautiful coming of the Diwali season. Let that light come. Let it come. Become that light.